All right, guys, today's role analysis is with Paul, who's a brand new blue belt, and what he's very good at is creating movements and reactions. So check out how I grab his collar as he starts to cut an angle. I have to draw my knees in and create two connections, one on the hip, one in the elbow, and he tries to time around my legs. And again, it's grabbing that ankle, creating an angle towards his back with my foot blocking his hip that allows me to insert this deep De La Riva, forcing his hands to the ground. With his hands on the ground, I can start to creep my way towards his hips, his back, or even just higher up his legs. I start to get a sleeve grip here, but getting his hand to the ground is the easiest way to get that far sleeve grip. I use my head inside of his neck, and he has no base in this direction, but he only has base towards his right hip. As he backsteps the other way, he starts to pin me on my back and move high up my body. So I use my feet to pinch his feet and I drag him south. As I try to come up and he creates this counter momentum, I just block. So if you watch again slowly, look how I build up. I try to create hip height and he shoots his hips higher than mine to pin me. And I use that momentum, I block his hand and I elevate the butterfly, going right into that leg drag position, closing my elbow towards my thigh and dropping my hip to parry his leg, rather than just sitting on two knees with a high hip position. As he faces me and he's on his side, I control the head and the arm, and he sits to all fours. I just sit back to guard, establishing control over the back of his knee with a shin to shin. I try to hit him with that classic Wardzinski sweep backwards, but when it fails, I elevate him forwards, comboing the two attacks, and he does a beautiful job here, clearing my two legs. But check it out, I use my hand on the inside here, so my elbow owns the inside space. This means he can't actually finish the pass, despite it looking terrible for me. Here he's actually just kind of gives up that sweep, which I think is great. I love it when blue belts are smooth like this. I high step. So check out how I clear that butterfly. It's traveling straight vertical. If I try to kick back, the butterfly would just track me. Again, he turtles nice and tight off his shoulder and he sits to guard. This was excellent. I try to circle around, try to avoid the legs. And finally, I do get towards his back and I knock him to his hip. As he starts to drive his back to the floor, which I think is the right move, he kind of makes one critical error. He places his hand on the cross side, crossing the midline, which allows me to trap his arm. This is one of my favorite traps here. You see this grip break right here. I love this. It's so powerful. It's going to lead to a motorcycle grip, and that means he's going to have zero hands to defend against my one hand. This is one of my preferred finishes. Crossed ankles on the back are okay as long as they're not between the thighs, and I get the reinforcement with the legs for the finish on this kind of bow and arrow choke. Once again, he starts on the outside, cutting nice angles, maintaining the distance, and I kind of expect that. You can see I keep my knee tight to my chest, and I reset my hips. Check it out. He travels to my right, I frame off my hand, and I reset my hips. He stuffs my foot in, which I think was quite nice. It helps to close the space. I think passing someone like me is very difficult at long range. And here he walks into this butterfly. I keep changing the angle of this sweep, and check out how his hand is trapped. So that means he can only get up by traveling away from me, which is exactly what he does. Very clean, strong reaction, quick enough where I couldn't get on top. Once again, cutting those angles. This time he tries a little harder to close his space, and I have to use my cross foot in his armpit, which allows me to scoop inside of his leg. This is a little bit of a fancier entry into an omoplata. His sweep towards his shoulder allows me to kind of creep my way right into the top position without having to deal with his legs. You can see how I dragged his knee away from his chest. With the low knee on belly position, I windshield wiper to the other side, and I circle towards the head. I do push him back to his back because I know when he turtles, he's pretty good at resetting. You can see he swims through the inside for one of my favorite knee on belly counters, and I try to use this to set the kimura trap. He does a beautiful job pummeling in his elbow and not allowing me to trap it. Even though I have the kimura trap here, it can be a little bit hard to take his back, and where he resets right into an over-under pass. This again to me is a good indicator of blue belt, where you go from defensive cycles to offensive cycles. You don't want to be stuck forever in that defensive loop. You can see a similar position here where I almost swim for like a K-guard type entry, but because of his high steps, he's actually able to close the space here. I build up to my elbow on the octopus, I give him a little bump with my hips, and then I slip out for the back. I control the far hip, and I know I don't really want to switch my hips and come on top because I think he'll beat me. So I draw him back and I punch my hand in. A little positional control. You can see I don't have great alignment here. I'm more on his side than his back. So what I do is I start to feed the lapels. I get both lapels for this modified bow and arrow, and that allows me to have enough control over him where I can reset my legs. The bottom leg being pinned here under his body is one of the most common mistakes I see with beginners. I advise you to always reset your hips like I just did so you can bring both legs into play. As we start one more time, you're going to see something important at play. When you start to catch someone, in this case 2 times already with the same thing, the third time and onwards, it actually gets a little bit easier. Kind of a tactical play, I guess. You could see a similar entry to before, no-gi cross grip on the wrist, trying to swim inside of his leg, but this time he blocks it. Every time I get Paul to step back, he allows me to maintain that angle. Look how I scoop his ankle and start to work my way either up the legs, to the back, or to the hip, as I had previously mentioned. Now, he is sitting high here on me, and I think if I did this early in the round, there's no way he would have let me do this. But definitely, I think falling for the same thing a couple times, he was a little bit discouraged. But this was an amazing roll from Paul, super smooth. I hope you guys enjoyed that roll analysis. If you did, be sure to subscribe and like.